We want to do about a 10-minute Q&A because we want to hear from you. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. You heard a lot of different things tonight. We want to hear from you. And guess what? You know what? I want to quickly say, just remember, what was it, the bird flu, H1N1? Do you guys know that they stopped testing in 2009, I think it was? They completely stopped the testing. Imagine if we had stopped the testing back in 2019, 2020. We really don't remember. They said 60 million people were affected in America alone from H1N1. But did we do any of these measures? You guys remember any? And guess who was really affected by that? Kids. And we heard nothing about it. This is why you must fight. Tom, who else? You want to come up? Who else? DJ, you want to come up? All right. I'm going to go out into the audience. Is it okay? You guys get that mic up there. That's the broken mic. I saw this first hand go up first. You got a question? Wait till they get the mic. Yep, you guys want chairs? Tom may need a chair. Hey guys, let me tell you something. Another guy. Tom has lost a ton of weight. He is looking good. All right, real quick.
I'm looking forward to see the email with the Zoom from Illinois Senator Darren Bailey regarding the lawsuit against J.B. Pritzker.
Sure.
Standing up for our children.
So what was supposed to be a 20-minute interview with Darren Bailey turned into about an hour and a half discussion, which is just another testament to the type of guy he is. You know, I'm just an everyday Joe, wanting to get on a Zoom meeting with him to learn a little bit about what's going through his head, and he gave me as much time as I needed. Now that video has been edited down to a 1-hour episode of him and I talking. We're going to email everyone who's here who provided their email address a copy of that recording so you can watch it. There's more in there, more fireworks that we didn't show today. Some pretty deep stuff that I was quite candidly not even sure if he was willing to talk about, but he was very forthright, so I do encourage you to watch that video.
That's true, but I need you guys to appreciate that the media wants to couch this conversation about what Governor Pritzker can or can't do. Do not let that distract you. The issue right now, and it is only this issue, is whether the Illinois State Board of Education is vested with the authority to suspend recognition status of your school district for not following its public health guidance. That's got nothing to do with Governor Pritzker. Do not let them conflate the issue, because I promise you, they'll try it. It's got nothing to do with it. Thank you.
First of all, fantastic venue. My name is Dave Ulrich, and it's not just masks. It's not just messenger RNA vaccines. It's not just the adenovirus vaccine. It's also CRT and sex education. So there's a group here from Lori at Murphy's. We've been meeting for quite some time here on the negative effects of it, but is it possible for me to put a QR code up there also for CLC Lake County, our Couch Lake County, is tomorrow night at 4:30, we're gonna show up there and we're going against the CRT theory over at CLC at the college there. We're trying to get a couple thousand people to sign on to a petition. It's a QR code, it takes like, I don't know, 15 seconds. Can I possibly put that QR code up there tonight?
I have no issue with that. You know, as Tom and I have talked many late nights, mostly him asking me questions like a teacher in school, leading me to the answers. You know, we know that there's more fights to be had here, you know, beyond just the masking of the children. But I feel like if we're going to win a fight, this is the fight we should be winning, hands down. Then we're going to continue on from there, and that's the purpose of the Liberty Initiative, is to fuel and fund the bandwidth necessary to continue down that track. And there's no man I know that's more dedicated to working for us than this guy right here. He's probably one of the hardest working guys I know. But absolutely, yes, if Dominic has that QR code, if there's a way to put it on the screen, we can do that.
Guys, it's the same conversation. CRT, sex education bill. It's all the same conversation. What is the extent of these administrative agencies to cram that stuff down your local school districts? I use it throats, but you know what I mean by that. It's all the same thing. If they can get them to follow a public health mask requirement that has no basis in law, do you think they're not going to get your school districts to think that they can make them do critical race theory or sex education? It's all the same thing. The biggest risk that we have right now in all of this is for all of you and your children to believe that when a state agency says you got to do it, that you just acquiesce and do it, versus saying the question, do you have the legislative or rulemaking ability to do that? That is the question on all of these things, and that's what we're trying to get to do. Guys, I could give you examples, and the naivety of our people, I'm glad, is what we're dealing with here. Because as an attorney that does what I do with people that I do it with, it's not unique that government tries to say we can do something to you that they can't. If you ever have government officials saying you have to do this, you couldn't do this, or you should do this, the first question to ask is, do you have the legislative authority to do it? Right? That is the question. So again, we're talking about CRT, sir, or whatever it was. We're talking about the sex ed bill. It's the same conversation. And I'm here to tell you right now, they do not have the authority to force this public health requirements on your local school district. And if you're not going to stand up for that, you're going to lose the argument on the other issues. Thank you.
And let me give you some encouragement by what I'm seeing here right now by the amazing woman that put this Liberty Initiative site together for us. In less than 24 hours, we've had over 3,000 visitations to this site. 3,000. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So that doesn't tell you that...
We can fight, but you got to be able to support the fight, right? Talking about it on the internet is not enough. You want to bring it to them? Bring it to them, and we'll show you guys how to do it.
And as far as the curriculum piece is concerned, one of my main special areas is curriculum development. And I will say this, the boards have to adopt the curriculum that is prescribed by the State Board of Education. Number one, yes, they provide the standards, but the board still has to go through the adoption process. Number two, the board has to go through the adoption process of the materials, and there is public viewing. I will tell you, as an assistant director of curriculum instruction and technology in a school district that is 10th largest in the state of Illinois, elementary school district, we would put out materials. Only one time in my entire career did I have a single citizen go into the district office to review the materials, number one. Number two, I want to make sure that, again, it goes back to Tom's point. You want to have your voice heard, you have to be seen. You have to be seen before you can be heard. I want to be clear about something, and I don't want to get into the weeds on this. There's two CRTs, culturally responsive teaching versus critical race theory. Two totally different animals. Couldn't be more different than the other. Culturally responsive teaching recognizes the melting pot that is America instead of isolating and segregating our children into completely polarized belief systems. All right? Thanks.
Sherry has a question.
Check.
Hello? Okay. No, I don't have a question. Thank you, guys. I just wanted to give an update because last month we helped organize like 50 school districts to help raise money for an attorney that we have in Schaumburg, Lavelle Law, to file a temporary restraining
Lance
order.
Siebel, he's my buddy.
Yes.
He's a very talented man. He's a
He's
very talented man, and he's going to work on this other issue that I'm talking to you guys about.
That we were just asking
He's
about
on my
that.
team.
Okay, good. That's good to know.
People
Anyway,
need
so
that, man.
We just wanted to give an update. The TRO actually got moved, but it's going to be heard on Wednesday. So it was actually a temporary restraining order that we filed against the governor, against the mask mandate. We did one parent from a public school and one parent from a private school, so that it would apply to all students.
I want to make sure you guys understand. Thank you, ma'am. This is important because the governor will use, and I'm being respectful, everybody, when I say the governor will use ignorance against the people. This issue that Sherry's talking about of whether or not the governor can issue an executive order, that's what Lance is taking on. Lance and I have had this conversation, and Lance is a very talented attorney who's ready to fight. And this issue that I'm talking about with ISB, he's on my team. But whether or not the governor can issue an executive order, in and of itself is the question in that case. I don't believe that he can. But if a court would say that the governor can issue an executive order, is a completely separate question of how that order might be enforced. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? He can write all the executive orders he wants. What is the mechanism of which you can enforce it? Because without an enforcement mechanism, even if you can write the order, it's hollow. And I'm here to tell you right now that ISB does not have an enforcement mechanism of the governor's executive order within their current authority. That is a separate question, and that is the question that we're talking about right now that the Liberty Initiative is going to bring. I don't care about the executive order. The governor will not even be a part of that conversation. He won't be a party to that complaint. Take that executive order and set it aside. Can you, ISB, enforce it? And the answer is no, and that's interdependent of the issue of whether or not you can write it. Thank you. Go ahead, John.
Hi, first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much to Thomas DeVore. You have helped so many families throughout Illinois, so thank you so much.
I'm trying, man. Thank you. Appreciate that very much.
My question, I have two questions. My first question is FOIA request. When you very specifically ask questions and they blatantly do not answer you, whether it's about taxes, whether it's the Will County Health Department avoiding questions on suicide, overdose, how many kids have died by violent crime, they don't answer these questions.
I can
so
help
what
you
do we
with
do?
that. I can help you with that, and I've had that question a bunch, and I want you guys to understand. When you ask a FOIA question, you are asking for documents. You're not asking a question that you want answered. The question that you're trying to answer has to be within the documentation that you're trying to acquire. So if you ask them a question, how many kids have something has happened to because of a reason? They don't have to answer that question. You have to ask them for a document. Do you have a report that breaks that down? Then they have to give it to you. So most everyday citizens don't appreciate that your FOIA request is limited to a request for a document that already exists, not a document that they have to create to answer your question. And that's how they get around those, man. So when you ask your questions in FOIA requests, be very specific. I'm asking for emails, I'm asking for a written document, I'm asking for anything that exists. Because if you don't, they'll just say nothing exists or we don't have anything, and you get frustrated. You have to ask for documents, okay? Johnny?
Again, I appreciate all that you have done and continue to do, so thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
I come from a family of 12, so I know what you're talking about.
Gotcha.
So my question is, given that the FDA has approved the Pfizer injection as of today, maybe, or not.
Arguably they did, yes.
All right, so maybe there's some clarification, if you have any, you can provide on that. But just trying to get ahead of that and any alleged or supposed mandate that may come towards us or our children. What's the legal strategy around that if indeed it is approved?
I can answer that. That's an excellent question. This is not a new issue for the state of Illinois. Do you guys realize that the exact same issue as we're dealing with vaccines presented itself in the early 1900s with the smallpox? Yep. Anybody know that? Do you know there's Illinois Supreme Court authority that deals with this? The only body of government that can put a condition upon your children for entry into a school, a public school, which you have a constitutional right for your child to attend, is the legislature. That is crystal clear. So whether or not our legislative branch of government at some point in time determines that the COVID vaccine is a condition precedent, sorry guys, getting tired. A condition precedent is for them to decide. But for the governor or some administrative agency to place that condition precedent on your children, it's not possible. And I suggest to you they're never going to try that. So if there's ever legislation presented that says that that vaccine, like a lot of the other vaccines, I mean, there's a lot of vaccines, right? Are you guys aware that in the law there is a actual provision that says that your children are not allowed to get their constitutional education if they haven't had certain vaccines unless you have an exemption? Are you guys aware of that? Yeah. That's not an administrative rule. That's the legislative branch of government. That's you. If they want to include the COVID vaccine, that will require legislative action. It's not going to be an administrative body doing that.
What about students that are in college and they're being forced to get the vaccines to be in college and they're taking away their Wi-Fi or they can't live in the dorms and things like that? What kind of fight?
The issue you have there deals with on what right is being impacted. Your children under the Illinois Constitution have a constitutional right to a free public education. That free public education ends at the grade of 12. When you get into college, you have no right to a college education. Those are private institutions that may be subject to discriminatory action under federal law, but when it comes to these types of issues, ma'am, that you're talking about, the same rules don't apply because no child, no person has a right, a constitutional right, to a higher education of college. So it's a completely different conversation.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys, everybody, for very helpful information. I have a comment and a question. Comment.
Just a question. We run out of
Okay.
time.
A question. How do you? I don't know about everybody else, but it's like I have a second full-time job now. I'm trying to keep up with your videos, Jack's videos.
Not much.
How do you? Listening to John Anthony.
That can take over.
Is there a way for you guys to kind of categorize? Excuse me. So we have public districts, we have private schools, and we have the archdiocesan schools.
They're private.
Well, the archdiocese is kind of a private. I should say private independent, right? Versus archdiocesan, because there's a difference.
Get to the question.
So is there a way for you guys to like put information and kind of categorize it that way? Because even though my kid, I'm hoping to get into private school, I still want to fight on all fronts available because I know, as some of you have mentioned, that okay, I'm not going to wait for the vaccine issue to come up. I want to fight now because over my dead body is my child going to be passed.
Amen.
Because if it's not that, it's going to be the vaccine. It's going to be something else. So I want to fight as much as I can on all fronts. So I don't know if there's, I know you guys have a lot of information out there. If there's a way you guys can categorize it so we can coalesce all of our, all of our fight together, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. In non-public institutions, I could stand here and say, you know what, under Title, anybody know what Title 23 is? Anybody? Guys, I hate to tell you, and I apologize for this, but the time has come to where you as citizens have to inform yourselves about these things, because if you don't, people will run right over you. Title 23 is the administrative regulations. Do any of you understand what an administrative agency is and how they operate? Right? And I appreciate nobody raising their hand. A couple people raise their hand. But the legislative branch of government, they wield the power of the people, right? And in that power, they create administrative agencies like the Illinois State Board of Education, Illinois Department of Health, Illinois Liquor Commission. I could go on and on. Those administrative agencies are tasked with certain obligations by the legislature. You have to accomplish certain things that are in the best interest of our people. How do they do that? They create rules and regulations consistent with what their goal was supposed to be. Their rules and regulations can't go beyond what they've been tasked to do. So if the legislature says, Illinois State Board, you have to do A, and you can only do A, they can't create rules and regulations that say we're going to do A and B, because the legislature controls that, okay? So as we're dealing with school districts, there are provisions in Title 23, Section 425, that deals with non-public institutions. And in there, I can tell you, with the law, that State Superintendent Ayala has no discretion whatsoever to suspend the recognition status of a non-public institution. She cannot do it on her own. Illinois State Board of Education can, under certain circumstances. Dr. Ayala cannot. It's prohibited by law. And if they're going to suspend your non-public institution's recognition status under 425.30 of Title 23, they have to be in violation of specific provisions which are requirements of recognition. And under health and safety, there are 8 under Section E. None of them have anything to do with public health guidance. I can sing you a sonnet up here. I can put it on the screen like I do in front of board members. And you know what? If people aren't willing to fight, specifically right now, school boards, whether they're private or public, these rules and these laws don't mean anything unless you're willing to stand up and fight. So the answer to your thing, sir, no, they cannot suspend a private school's recognition status. That doesn't matter if their private school, like Timothy Christian, no disrespect, is going to just stand up and fight, and as soon as they get a letter, concede. That's dangerous. You shouldn't do that. Yes, John?
I just want to say I have 12-year-old triplets, so I'm
Sweet.
feeling young.
Sweet.
So you kind of answered the question because we're from the Archdiocese as well.
Right.
So we don't have an elected school board.
Right.
So we send a gazillion emails and calls and things, and they basically ignore us, and actually came out and said they're basically ignoring us. So how do we fight that?
That's a good question, because keep in mind, whether or not recognition status can be suspended of a private non-public institution is a different question than what their discretion is that they decide to wield. Your child has no constitutional right to a private education. Public education, yes. Private, no. So if your local school districts, private, like the Archdiocese, say, we're going to institute a mask mandate, irrespective of whether or not their recognition status could really be implicated, your options are pretty much nothing, because that's not a protected class under federal law. So your arguments and the things that public school districts can make are almost zero in a private institution, and you just have to accept that, and you don't send your kid there.
Don't give them your money.
Our conversation
Don't give
started
them your
when
money.
we first spoke.
Give it to me, brother.
Well, our children go to a Catholic school.
You didn't like
So
that.
here I am fighting for the public
Tell 'em.
schools. And Tom had to educate me just like he did you on that question. But we came to the conclusion that, if we start at the public level and we can make an impact, maybe the arch will follow suit. You see,
Courage.
the other thing I'd like to point out to the question from my man back here, we have people in our group that own digital marketing companies. We're going to begin to silo this information and get more organized to make it easier for us to push content to you. It's a work in progress. But beyond that, I believe, and I don't know if Tom would agree with this, but I believe we had a discussion about this one day. It's going to take asking for these people to make a moral commitment, quite candidly. It's going to be asking them to make a moral commitment, getting them in these meetings, having them a part of these discussions. They have to understand the importance of united we stand, divided we fall.
Sustained also.
And so, these are human beings just like us. People don't follow titles, they follow courage. To quote Braveheart.
One of my favorite. Hey, is it freedom? Is it on there? Is that what it is?
All right, guys.
So at the end of the day, you got to hit them morally. You got to get them to think about what this could mean to their future, their life. People don't make decisions logically. They make them emotionally.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Hello,
Yes, ma'am.
my name is Jean Hedgepeth. My
Hello,
lawyer
Jean.
is over here.
You've been waving that flag a lot.
Christine Svensson.
Hello, counselor.
And I'm trying to have the courage you're talking about by standing up to the man. as
It's
he
not
said in the
easy, is it,
70s.
ma'am?
No, sir, it isn't.
I understand.
In Illinois, we spend $13,000 on average for students. Half of that goes to pensions. Over 2 million students are in Illinois. And I'd like to know how much you think that it would hurt. Where's the power? You're talking about, all these little agencies and all they do. The teachers union. If we had 1/3 of our kids taken out of the public schools, how much of a dent would we put in their power? What do you think?
Let me answer that question for you. And I say this with all due respect to teachers, because teachers, like firefighters, police officers, are the salt of the earth. They work hard, right? But let's talk about an example, ma'am, that I want to give you. I just got an email today, and I told Riley about it. I got an email from none other than a bunch of teachers from the Chicago Public School District asking me for my help because they're going to mandate vaccination, in their belief, on these teachers, and they don't like it, right? And I haven't answered yet, and I will answer politely, respectfully, as I always do, going, you know what? When you give power up to people like, again, the public union, when you give that power to them to benefit you, you have to be willing to accept that they might turn that power against you sometime, right? And that's what's happening right now. They're looking for somebody to help them because the public union, as I understand it, and I'm assuming what I'm being told is correct, is not going to protect them from that issue. That's dangerous, right? So we can't, and it goes back to my question before, you can't give up power to either union or to government agencies without appreciating that sometime that power that you're giving up may be turned against you in the future. So that is a very good question, and again, it's a dangerous proposition that needs to be considered.
Did you have a question, Nikki?
Nikki, give it to us. Ask your husband,
Come on.
please.
Better not be personal.
He will be a better husband as time goes on. That's what he's telling me. I'm just kidding.